What is good, everybody, man? Welcome into the Blue Bloods, the Coach's Corner edition. As always, week 8 has come and it is gone. We're shifting over to week 9. It's just insane, man. The football season is almost over at this point. I don't love it, but join here, my guy, Coach Fred, coming off of his third consecutive win, a big win over Arkansas Pine Bluff this past weekend, a game coming up against Valley this weekend at the house. Coach, man, how we feeling?
Feeling good, man. The goal is to go 1-0 every week, and that goal was met. Today, a few hours ago, was the last time we could celebrate that one, and it's on to the next one, man. So, it felt good. Early game on Saturday, it was a great crowd. Hats off to the UAPB faithful for coming out and supporting, their team. It was a great crowd, great atmosphere. Fortunate to come out with the win. On to the next.
Hey, I mean, I want to give a shout out because listen, I'll say this. I know you can't say much, but there was a lot of talk this offseason hyping up, the quarterback play over at Alcorn. And there was a guy who kind of got forgotten by the media, and his name was Aaron Allen. And he just kind of got overlooked this preseason. And man, I just wanted to give a shout out to him personally because that kid, I mean, playing unbelievable. We talked before the show, 3 SWAC Offensive Player of the Week awards since he took back over that starting role. And I mean, he's probably playing some of the best football in the SWAC right now offensively out there, man. I know as a wide receiver coach, man, it makes your job so much easier when you got a guy spinning it like that. But man, I just wanted to give a shout out to Aaron Allen because right now he is on track, Coach. We're talking about all conference type season right now in terms of the numbers he's putting up.
Yes, and like you said, hats off to that kid. Just kept his head down, kept working, waited for the opportunity. It's kind of been a history for us, dating all the way back to John Gibbs and, knock, that, number one, something happens. And then number 2 is it steps in and he's immediately ready. And, it's like I said, from John Gibbs to Lenore's Footman to Noah Johnson to Felix Harper to now we're at, Tyler Mako to Aaron Allen. So, hats off to those guys, Coach Phillips, Coach Mack, that work with the quarterbacks, just kept the kid ready to go, man. And, again, knock, he's been on, he's been on point.
Hey, as good of a weekend it was for your team, for your picks and bandwagons, not as much, but
my super dogs,
your super dogs hit. I my first one I don't think hit, the Texas A&M Commerce. The Lafayette pick was golden. I like that one. Of course, me and you both shouted out Morgan this past weekend, past Thursday. They did their thing, and that was a defense. Me and you were texting. That was a defensive struggle. That defense is so real, and I hate that it's getting wasted right now because that offense is bad. I mean, historically bad. The only offense that might be worse is North Carolina A&T, who is yet to pass, I think, for 90 yards this year in a game. They got 359 yards passing in 7 games.
I had to go look that up to make sure I was looking at it right because I went back, week by week, game by game, and I was like, wait a minute, this can't be. And then this past week, I think they had 5 receivers catch 1 pass apiece. Yeah, man. Yeah.
They completed 5. I want to say they completed 5 passes, Coach, and they threw 2 pick sixes and 3 total interceptions this weekend.
Yeah,
it was tough. Listen, A&T is going through a rough patch right now in terms of. I'll say this: their quarterback play, I think, isn't like. I'm sorry, I've seen all 3 of these guys ball out. We got to make a switch somewhere else, whether it's scheme, coaching. We got to do something because it can't be that bad. But Coach, I mean, outside of just, super dogs hitting, man, Furman rolling through Western Carolina. And I got heat for this. Coach, the headline that I put in the takeaways article said Furman rolls against number 8 Western Carolina. And so I want to ask you, because I got called out by this by one of the players' parents. He said that I was over exaggerating. When you hear someone write rolls against, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Because for me, when I say rolls against, I'm thinking rushing attack. And this team rushed for 334 yards and averaged 7 yards per carry. That sounds like rolling to me.
Well, that was the first thing that came to mind when you said that was, rolling over or, it wasn't that they went air raid, rolling over. They just lined up, went toe to toe. So the first thing that comes to mind when that's said is, for me, would be rushing attack. like you said. And we text after the ball game, and you told me what happened. And I went back, and I was like, not my last Cinderella, but my last Cinderella, man. And I'm trying to get to my notes here. It wasn't pretty, and I think again, when you make a team turn it over the way that they turned it over, and then the team is running the ball the way that they ran the ball, it's going to be tough for anybody to make up that difference, man. And I think that's just kind of one of those things that a young ball club, next year, he might not make those mistakes in the pass game because he had been pretty good up to this point with protecting the football. So, when you say that, man, in an article, that's what comes to mind for me.
Coach, this was a game of missed opportunities, in my opinion. Coach, when I look at this, because I was at the game and I went back and double checked because this was my takeaway on the sideline too. Western Carolina drove into Furman territory every single possession this weekend. They crossed the 50 every single possession, and they leave this game with only 17 points. You can't have that inefficiency against a team that's so good. Coach, their first two drives, they drive into Furman territory, fail to convert on fourth down. They do it again early in the second quarter. Then they throw an interception at the goal line, and then they throw an interception on their final drive as well. And they get the ball in Furman territory, third quarter, a chance to take the lead. They go 3 plays for negative 10 yards on that drive. When you get the ball in plus territory against a top 5 team in the country, you can't leave without points in that situation. And so for me, when I look at this game, as great as Furman played, Western Carolina left a lot of meat on the bone this weekend because they were in positions to win the game, and they just failed to convert in crucial moments. And I get that it's focusing a lot on Western Carolina. Give Furman credit. Their defense stepped up. It was kind of a lot of bend but don't break. Listen, we'll let you get your little yards here and there. But when it comes down to those points, we're cutting that off. And so you got to give Furman's defense a little bit of credit for showing some backbone and some I would say some clutch moments.
Well, they kept it from the 30 to the 30. You can do what you want to do from the 30 to 30. We'll be good with it. In Western Carolina, when you say that about every possession, and then you say you're going to be 50% on third down, you think this is a game that you have an opportunity to, come out with a win. But 0 for 3 on fourth down, one of those being early in the game, like you just talked about, and, you give up 500 yards of offense. This is what they normally do to other people, or what they had done to other opponents up to this point. And, 21 to 35, if you tell me my quarterback's going to do that and throw the ball for 260, almost 270 yards, I would feel good about it. But the problem was that we gave up 335 yards on the ground. So, that plus not getting points when you have the opportunity to get 6, not just 3, but to get 6. This is the classic case of how it comes back to bite you.
I think when I look at Furman, this is going to sound crazy because I was I doubted him. Listen, shout out to my guy, Matt, defensive tackle over at Furman. I saw him after the game. He ran up to me. He was like, they doubted us. They aren't going to doubt us anymore. Hey, I was one of them. Listen, I was wrong on this one. But, Coach, this is the first time I've got to see Furman in person this year. When I tell you this, I think the reason everyone, gives kind of credence to the MVFC teams, the Big Sky teams, those are the teams that usually make the runs. And it's because of the DNA of the team is running the football, and they have size and physicality on the line of scrimmage. I'm here to say, if that's the case, if that's the recipe for success, Furman's a national title contender this year. And I know people are going to absolutely try to crucify me for saying that because they haven't looked super, super explosive offensively early. This team, Coach, the offensive line looks like a Power 5 offensive line in terms of size, technique, seniority. They're really experienced, and they controlled, Coach, every snap. They dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, man. Their defensive line has a lot of size interior, and they don't have a true edge rusher, but they do kind of that South Dakota State method where they don't have a true edge rusher, but they're so big and physical up front that the linebackers just go and make all the plays. And they're just in the Yeah, they're in the backfield. They're ball hawks, and their defensive line were rotating in and out. They go deep on. They got some depth on the defensive line, and then their secondary. Man, they got some playmakers. Let's be honest. I know this sounds crazy to people who are just now watching the show, might be their first time tuning in. 353 total yards is a season low for Western Carolina, and they held them to that at home in front of a crowd that was engaged. I mean, that stadium was almost a sellout. And I see the comments. I'm not saying they would beat South Dakota State. I'm saying they can make a run to the national title if they get the right bracket and things like that. And I think this is a top 4 team in the country right now. And I was impressed. And Coach, we talked before the game, and I said the one thing that concerns me was Tyler Huff's ability to play in those big games, his experience.
Yep.
And you saw it. As Cole Gonzalez is the gunslinger, me and you are in love with what his trajectory could be as a true sophomore. But you saw the seniority come through because Tyler Huff did not make the same mistakes that Cole Gonzalez did this weekend.
And control the game. You know, it was no big pressing, matter. And, DR made that easy for him. And I think that was, again, hats off to the guys upstairs, with the collar shirts on. When you can turn around and hand it to somebody 31 times, that takes a lot of pressure off of the guy that's calling the cadence. And when they did that and was able to be really successful at it, that's 5 yards a pop every time he touches it. Now, when we get in tight situations, hey, man, no need to force it. We can just turn it around, salt this thing away. And that's, that's kind of what they did with their run game, just, took the air out of it. And again, you can't get down there and not get anything in return.
Yeah, I got to give Roberto credit because, I saw him in person last year against Mercer. I got to see him again this weekend. The kid's built like a linebacker playing running back. He's just a bowling ball, man. And you got to give Furman credit because, Coach, I think when I look at the first half, because I was texting Timothy during the game, and they exploded early. Like Furman took a 13-0 lead. They missed that extra point. But what happened is they got too excited and they kind of started speeding the game up like Chattanooga did. And when you're playing Western Carolina, do not speed the game up.
That's what they want you to do.
That's exactly what they want to do. But, Coach, if you go back and look in the second half, they come out of halftime, 7-minute drive, a 6-minute drive to start the fourth quarter, another 4-minute drive to ice the game with a big touchdown, which probably would have been a 6-7-minute drive if Tyler Huff doesn't break that long touchdown to close the game out. They came out of halftime and slowed the game way down. And I don't think Western is a team that wants to be fast-paced. They want to have explosive plays. Well, if you limit their explosive plays and then you start eating the clock on the other side and they can't stop your rushing attack, it's a recipe for disaster. And so I think if Western can't figure that out, Coach, I think their ceiling is limited on what they can do in the playoffs because the top teams in the country can replicate what Furman did, slow the game down. They're big physical on the offensive and defensive line, and they're going to make Western Carolina play that type of game. And I don't know if that offense is built to play that game, especially with Desmond Reed not being healthy. He played a few snaps early. I think he went out there, tried it, wasn't 100%, so they pulled him. When he gets back, it could be a different conversation. But right now, with Desmond out, I don't think Western Carolina has that DNA right now to play that type of game.
That, and then when you start looking at the teams that you've got to beat, there's some dome teams, but then there's the outdoor teams. And
the Montanas
and the elements are going to change. So you've got to be able to find an answer for that run game, like you said. And I think, if WCU wants to be serious, they've got to do that. And they've got to find an answer on offense as well, because, again, all they did was keep it in front. Don't let you beat us over the top. Keep it in front. And when it gets tight, then, okay, we'll tighten it down a little bit. There's only so far you can go. And they've got to come back. And then, Cole's a big-time player. He'll be back. He'll learn from this. But they've got to find a way. Because, like you said, the wrong bracket could put you outdoors in a night game in very frigid, temperatures. So you've got to find an answer.
And with the chaos of just what FCS football has been, man, even if it's inside, you could get, North Dakota State's going to be in that first. Someone's going to have to go to Fargo in the first round, probably, right?
And prove that they're not the same team.
Yes. And then you get that lucky team that gets to play, no offense, gets to play the Pioneer League champion, gets to play someone like that. They get the much easier, but someone's going to have to go to Fargo. Someone could possibly have to go to Missoula if they don't, clinch a seed. So there's going to be some tough first round matchups out there. So you've got to come ready. But coach, shifting to the secondary game of the week, you want to talk about a rushing attack. Nobody, we say it week in and week out, nobody runs the football better than that team up in Bozeman. And that goes for Power 5. That goes for FCS, D2, D3, pro football. Coach, 328 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, averaged almost 7 yards per carry again as Montana State explodes against Sacramento State, picks up a huge top 5 win. Coach, man, what was your takeaway from the Bobcats' impressive performance this weekend?
Man, I was wrong about this one, but I'll take that one. But just the way that they ran the ball and control the tempo of the game again, and then I think defensively they gave a little but didn't give a lot. Because when you look at it, total yards about even, but again, we've talked about it from the start of the show with the timing rules. If you can run for 300 plus yards, you have an opportunity to just salt the game away and the other team doesn't get it back. 42-30, and you've run for over 300, 3 penalties on the day. 3 penalties on the day. That's
on the road too.
Yeah, on the road. That's big time. That's saying that, you're focused, you're locked into what you got to do. And, hats off to MTST. They went in and did it. And again, you tell me that I'm going to end up with 434 yards, 230 yards passing, 200 rushing. I would feel pretty good about the outcome. But the other problem is that on the other side, they did the same thing, but a little bit better in that running game.
I think the difference was Sacramento State gave up a lot of yards, a lot of explosive plays. That's true. But listen, Montana State gave up over 430 yards of total offense, but the difference was they forced turnovers in crucial moments. They understood it was going to be a shootout. That pick 6 changed the game, kind of helped extend the lead to a
turn the momentum.
It flipped it completely, especially on the road. Getting a play like that on the road in a back and forth type game is huge. And then they got another interception in the third quarter, turned that into points as well. And that was all she wrote, man, because it really was going to be a back and forth. But once Montana State got that double-digit lead, it was a wrap. But listen, give Julius Davis his props, man. That hurdle, if that wasn't number 1 on SportsCenter's top 10 plays, I don't know FCS football, man, because to get up like that at his size, and then on top of that, accelerate after the hurdle and get another 20, 30 yards is just elite athleticism. And then also, let's give props to Tommy Millott. First action since his injury, over 100 yards rushing. And I was a little bit surprised at the quarterback rotation. I thought Sean Chambers would still be featured a lot in terms of throwing the football, but Tommy Millott solidified himself as that guy after the injury. I know there was some talk about what that rotation was going to look like after his injury, but man, the offensive line, elite for Montana State. I know the running backs, they have a lot of talent in quarterback, running back, but the offensive line is the X factor. And when you go back and watch the film, yeah, Tommy too. Do I think Sean might be the better thrower of the football overall, the more pure passer? Probably. But I think Tommy, something you can't account for is that X factor, that explosive factor that Tommy brings to the offense. The offense just looks so much more explosive. And I know that's hard to say because they're explosive on the ground, especially regardless. But I just think Tommy can take that offense to the next level. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I know everyone's going to think differently, but also let's give Tom McCullough his credit, man. I've talked about needing to develop an outside target. 4 for 53, 1 touchdown. His touchdown catch, he climbed the ladder, went up there and got it. And it wasn't a wide open catch, man. He did it in coverage. So, man, if they can develop some outside targets and get the passing game to be effective in certain situations to kind of clear that box sometimes, this team's going to be hard to beat.
And then, when you're talking about a lot, to go 100 in the pass game, over 100 in the rush game, that's tough to account for. And, their running attack didn't need anything else. But then you add him back in the mix, they're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough out.
I will say I was wrong because about a week or so ago, I said that I think South Dakota State had a wide margin. I think it's probably 1-2. I think if I had to put money on it, I know the FCS national championship odds came out last week. Man, it's going to be hard pressed to find, because these two teams are probably going to be the top 2 seeds. It's going to be really hard to go to Brookings and Bozeman and win in the playoffs this year. Especially, we know what it's like, because both of those are outside environments. If they're on opposite sides of the bracket, man, I just don't know who's going to go into Bozeman and Brookings and beat these two teams.
Sign me up to watch that.
Oh yeah, I was at the first game. I'll be in the second game in Frisco if that's the matchup. Absolutely, man. I need to see that one. But Coach, we had an upset. Listen, we've been 0 for 2 on these Holy Cross picks. Now, we might just have to stop picking Holy Cross in general. But Coach, let's give credit where credit's due. So Lafayette has not made the playoffs since, I want to say, 2013, and they did it with a losing record. This team it came out of nowhere this year. 6-1, 2-0 in conference. Coach, they're 6-0 against FCS competition. They go into Holy Cross and pull out a 38-35 win. Had a 24-7 lead early in the third quarter, man. Because what was your takeaway from the Leopards' upset win over Holy Cross this weekend?
I mean, before we get to that, they were a 15-point freaking underdog. Who missed that? You know what I mean?
Easy money. Easy money.
That, but like you said, to do this, I don't know if it was as much about them as it was, Holy Cross. I just had so much. I thought they had so much promise coming off of that early part of the season, man, and then they may still do. I'm not counting them out completely, but I think they've hit a spot where they've got to kind of figure some things out with what they want to do. If they're going to sell out and just, go Matt all the way. But they've got to have a counter off of that, because when it's cut off, because obviously Lafayette found a way to cut it off, you've got to have something else to go to. And throwing for less than 90 yards is not going to help you out in that situation, because they're basically saying we're going to put everybody in the line of scrimmage. If you beat us out here. And throwing for 80 yards is not going to beat anybody when you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll say this. This team is still elite offensively. I mean, I don't know what else you want from Matt Saluka. The kid set the NCAA record for rushing yards by a quarterback this weekend. Guys, I want to put this in perspective. 330 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 12 yards per carry, and he had a passing touchdown too. He can't do anymore. Like, you got to find some help for this guy. He's doing it all. He is doing it all by himself right now. Offensively, I don't have a problem, because Holy Cross has been able to score on everybody. The problem is the defense. They're young in a lot of key spots, especially on the defensive line. Their linebacking unit has been up and down. Jacob Dobbs is elite, but outside of him, they're really missing that next guy that they can put next to him. And the secondary has struggled at times. So at the end of the day, Matt Saluka can't play both ways. He's putting up yards offensively. Coach, all the statistics and all the production offensively, man, if the defense is allowing 7 yards per carry from the starting running back on the other side, giving up a lot of plays to Dean at quarterback, there's nothing you can do. So I would say, listen, Jamar Curtis had an outstanding game, 229, 2 touchdowns, and Dean didn't make any mistakes, Coach. 0 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, threw for almost 300 yards. They just consistently made plays. And also that defensive line continuing to get to the quarterback, had 2 sacks this weekend. Billy Schaefer, Marco, I want to say Alaves, but all those guys are elite on the defensive side of the ball for Lafayette. And right now they're in full control, because I mean, you're looking at Holy Cross now, Coach. They have that conference loss. You got the tiebreaker over them. Holy Cross has to now rebound. They've lost 2 out of their last 3 games, and now they got to go play Fordham next week, who's going to be looking to get revenge from last year, and they can throw the football with the best of them. That's not a guaranteed win for Holy Cross. So now Lafayette controls their destiny, man. If their defense continues to get pressure on the quarterback, because I don't think they're going to face a guy in the Patriot League as good as Saluka. If their defense can just stay consistent and they're running the football like this, man, I think they might have this auto bid locked up for the Patriot League and could end that streak of 4 consecutive championships for Holy Cross.
Let me ask you this, and it's kind of like we always do. It may take us off subject, but if Saluka keeps this up, now it would be unreal if he just went out and rushed for 300 yards a game for the rest of the way out. Let's just say he turns back to human, and he just goes for 100, 150 here the rest of the way out with what he's done. Does he now get Player of the Year consideration, even if Holy Cross doesn't finish with a winning record, so to speak?
I would. Like, for me right now, it's hard pressed. I mean, maybe I'm missing someone. I got to do some research, but it's off the top of my head. It's hard pressed to find someone who I would vote above Matthew Saluka right now. Because I think if you're voting for Player of the Year, it's not this. This is my big debate with the Heisman. It's not the best player on the best team. It's who's the best, most valuable player. If you took Matthew Saluka off Holy Cross,
what you got?
There's no reason to even tune in to a Holy Cross game right now.
Yeah, what you got?
He is the team coach. Right now, he's thrown for 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 4 picks, has almost 1,000 yards rushing and 7 rushing touchdowns. What the kid's doing everything he's supposed to as a player. And listen, I know my guy Josh is going to kill me because he thinks Davius Richard deserves this title, but I'm going to say it. There's not a better dual threat quarterback in college football right now than Matthew Saluka.
And I'm with you. I'm just, I just threw that out there. If they finish 500 and he continues to put up these numbers, does he get consideration even though he's not on the best team?
No, I'll say it. I'll consider him, but a lot of the other voters won't. There's a lot of Big Sky Valley voters who aren't going to vote for Saluka just because even if they go undefeated, they wouldn't have voted for him just because of the conference he plays in. Even though he did it against South Dakota State, even though he did it in the playoffs, it doesn't matter to them. Even though he did it against Power 5 opponents, they just wouldn't vote for him because he plays in a quote unquote lesser conference. That's just how it's going to be. It would be the same thing if a Group of 5 player was up for the Heisman. They would knock him down. And I think, listen, Saluka is that guy. And I think, Coach, from what I'm hearing, he's going to be one of the top prospects in the FCS this year for the upcoming NFL draft just because of his dual threat ability.
Yeah, I don't know how he's not. I don't know how he wouldn't be. But, hey, back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and Lafayette, Coach, a win over Princeton, who knocked off Harvard this weekend. They got a CAA win over Monmouth. They got another Ivy League win. I'm blanking on the team, but they've won some nice out of conference games. Not the top 25 teams, but really good out of conference wins. Man, I think Lafayette. I'm really shocked. I want to ask you this, because this was going to be a topic later, but this is one of our last games we're covering anyway. Coach of the Year. There was a big debate going on. Do you give it to the obvious ones in terms of Jimmy Rogers at South Dakota State, who's a first ever time head coach and just doing what he should have done, with this roster? But hey, it's his first time coaching, not his, he's doing a hell of a job. Do you give it to Vegan with Montana State doing what they're doing? Or do you give it to a coach at Lafayette? Do you give it to Kerwin Bell at Western Carolina? What do you consider? How do you think voters should look at that? Should you give it to the obvious best teams who just have all the talent, or do you give it to the coach who did more with less?
I'm like you when you were talking about the Player of the Year, and to quote Steve Spurrier, a lot of these programs have been these programs. Anybody could go there and win in these programs. But when you take a program that's been bottom feeder, middle of the pack, and now you're at an 8 or 10 type, win season, to me, those guys are the guys that are really, really, not to take anything away from anybody else, because you still got to coach. But to me, those guys should get more consideration, considering, hey, nobody would have taken that Western Kentucky, Carolina job, say 5 years ago. Now they'd all line up to take that job, that kind of thing. And I think that's because of what he's done. So to me, I think it goes that way, or it should go that way. But again, like you said, I don't think people give the votes because it's not the sexy pick.
Well, it was like last year. Last year, there was a big, big push. So Jason Eck took over Idaho, took them to the playoffs. A lot of people thought he should be a consideration. He wasn't even on the ballot. and they give it to Stig at South Dakota State, which he ended up retiring. It's a good story. Like, I'm glad he got that Coach of the Year, got that title. And at the end of the day, he won the first national title in South Dakota State history. So it ended up working out, even though the award was given before the game. But John Troxell at Lafayette, got to consider him, man, especially if they win out and they're undefeated against FCS opponents. This Lafayette team, I don't know if they've had a winning season since like the mid 2000s. Yeah. Give that guy his flowers. But then I say this, if Kerwin Bell finds a way to win out this year, even if they don't win the SoCon, man, for me as a voter, I think you got to give it to Kerwin Bell. Coach, this Western Carolina team, when he got there, was a 1-win team. And in 3 seasons, he has this team in the top 10 before his talent is even upperclassmen. He's doing this with sophomores and freshmen at key positions. And Coach, not even from the transfer portal. You look at that team is built through the high school ranks that him and his staff have went out and recruited and developed themselves. I think you give it to Kerwin Bell right this second. John Troxell would be in my ballot as well. But is great. I think Jimmy Rogers would be a third because, listen, first-time head coach doing his thing, he deserves to get consideration. But, man, if you put Kerwin, I'm sorry, I don't want to say, God, I don't know if I can say this, but if Kerwin Bell was the coach of South Dakota State, would anyone say they wouldn't be in the exact same spot they are right this second?
The exact same spot.
Like, I hate to say that because, like, it seems a little disrespectful, but I'm not trying to be disrespectful with it, but like, let's be honest, like Kerwin Bell's a great coach. And I don't know if you switched everyone's places, if a lot of coaches in the country could do what Kerwin Bell has done at Western Carolina.
Or would even attempt to do, you know? And like you said, I mean, he's doing it with a bunch of jits, man, a bunch of jitterbugs, man, a bunch of young kids. And, again, hats off. It's not a seasoned quarterback that's, leading his offense. This kid's probably played up to 12 games at this point in college career. I think he's got to be on the ballot. I think he needs to be, seriously considered. But again, it's like most MVPs, most, player of the year type awards. It never goes to the guy that's done the most, that kind of thing. So to me, I don't know.
I agree with Mike too. That's why Davius Richard was an All-American for us. We were the only publication to give him All-American honors. If you take Davius Richard off of Central right now,
I know that
team's not this. They don't win Thursday night. No, hell, Morgan beats them. Now, I will say this. I don't know what Walker's going to look like when you give him the full-time job. I've heard that he's more like Walker was Leone's guy that he wanted to bring in. So we'll see what they look like, because I've heard Leone's really excited for his future if he doesn't get that head coaching job, which I've been vouching for. But if Leone stays, I'm really excited to see what Walker does. But, Coach, shifting over here, the rankings came out. I know they just lost, but I had to bring it up for a topic. They have Western Carolina dropping all the way to 16. Now, hang on. 1 spot behind Chattanooga, who they just beat 2 weeks ago.
But it's one of those things, man, for whatever reason, from the beginning, Western has never been a favorite of the voters. You go back and you look at a team that lost 2 weeks ago. They didn't drop that far. It's not like they just got ran out of the building. I mean, they were within reach score-wise. So, again, I don't know what Coach Bell has done to some voters or whatever, not taking their calls or their press conference, something like that. But if Bluebloods University lost week 5 and they were ranked 5th and they only went to 8th, and 3 weeks later, Fred University is ranked 5th and we lose and we drop to 16, explain that to me.
They lost 1 FCS game and they're behind the team they beat 2 weeks ago, who also has 2 FCS losses, including the one to the team they're above now. And they're behind North Dakota. They're still behind North Dakota State, who has not been impressive this year either. Now, I get the brand, but, I mean, they don't have a ranked win this year.
And take them. How far did they drop after the first one?
Not far at all.
My point exactly.
This is the coaches poll, by the way. This isn't the media poll. I just had to pick. I always get to pick.
Man,
this is the
coaches
poll.
My note down. I keep forgetting every time I think about it, man. I need to get that off of his desk.
We need Coach. We need Fred's ballot. We need Coach McNair's ballot.
Yes, man.
I just want to know, like, okay, Coach, this was a question that a lot of people have had, and I dropped both of these teams from my top 25. Holy Cross and William and Mary. We talked about Holy Cross. William and Mary has now lost 3 consecutive games. They lost to Townsend this weekend. How are we? Is that still a top? Are either one, for in your opinion, are either one of those teams still top 25 worthy?
No. Simply for the fact that you dropped 3 in a row, you lose all of that. Now you could be at that, still receiving votes, but to actually have a number that just doesn't add up to me. No. And when you take what they've done to Western, that just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up.
I mean, you look at William and Mary, Coach. They've lost to Elon,
and they've been less than impressive.
Yeah, they don't have any signature wins. They have 0 ranked. I don't even think they have a win over a team with a winning. Well, no, Campbell got over 500 this week, and they beat Maine. I think they have 1 win over a team with a plus 500 record. And then you look at Holy Cross. They had that close loss to Boston College, but if your signature win is a close loss, that just shows how bad the resume is.
Yeah, there's some disparity there, man.
I get the voters because I struggle with this sometimes, and I get it because I try to check myself as much as possible, because on paper, when I'm looking at the team and I'm saying who are the most 25 talented teams, logically looking at the rosters of William and Mary and Holy Cross, those teams should be top 25 teams. They have all the talent. I mean, John Pius and Nate Lynn are elite. Bronson Yoder, elite. Darius Wilson, elite. Matthew Saluka, Jalen Coker, the list, Luke Newman, the list goes on and on. But at the end of the day, you can't let on paper thoughts about a team. I get it. People are going to be like, they're still one of the 25 best teams. And it's like, on the field, they haven't proved that yet. And that's the problem.
So if they go over and they still have all that talent,
then what?
Where are we at with that? At that point, potential, I get it. But to me, that's early season. Now that gives me, okay, that's your merit for early season. Now we're halfway through and we're past the halfway mark. That can't still be your merit for, well, I'm not going to drop them out. That can't be it. I mean, especially when you have teams that are deserving. They're doing it on the field. They're doing it in the win-loss column. I just don't think, that's a fair trade.
I'm with you. And Ron, that was a good question, because that was my next comment, because Coach, we're going to go to takeaways real quick. My takeaway is I don't know what to make of this season. This has been one of the wildest seasons I can remember. Coach, 1 week ago, we were talking about North Dakota dominating North Dakota State. And they come back this week and get shut out by Northern Iowa.
Didn't see that one coming.
And then you got Harvard rolling, and they get beat by Princeton. And it's just like all these cross matchups. I mean, Youngstown State's been super inconsistent. They'll dominate Southern Illinois, but then choke 2 weeks later. It's just everyone's been so inconsistent. I mean, I don't know what to think. I mean, heck, Coach, let's move to our HBCU segment real quick. Just briefly cover it. That's the same way I feel about. Listen, Central should win the MEAC, but behind them, I don't know what to make of anybody. I mean, really, because Morgan doesn't have an offense. They have the defense to win the conference, but do you trust them to score on everybody? South Carolina State's kind of caught some momentum recently, but do we trust Corey Fields in the biggest games? I don't know. We'll find out Thursday when they play Central. Delaware State's the one team I can peg as someone who's not going to win the conference. But then Norfolk and Howard have both shown that ability to win games. Howard squeaks went out this weekend, but
they showed the ability to lose them.
That's a fact. So 2 through 5 in the MEAC, because I'll put Central at 1, Delaware State at 6. Everyone else is just one big question mark for me, because it could just come down to who wins those individual matchups.
It's like a former boss I used to work for, Tim Haddon, used to say, ain't nothing but the dice game, baby. You just, you throw it out there and you see what comes up. When you're talking about the season itself, it all started 3 weeks ago with the total chaos, man. And this is why we love the game. But staying on topic with the MEAC, if Morgan has that much offensively, man, they're super scary. And now I wonder, going through, will they still have that same fight, that same mustard, the rest of the way to find, possibly squeak one out. And, Central showed me Thursday that they have the bug of what's inside of a champion to be able to muster it out and go toe to toe in that kind of game. I'm sure that's not what they wanted, but they were able to go that route and win the game. They've shown in the past that they can win shootouts. So it's going to take somebody catching them on one of those days where they're not at their best, where if Morgan could have got up a score, 2 scores, they hold on, but they can never get up. Now, if somebody gets up 2 scores, are they going to be able to hold on in Central? Because Central's tested. I just don't know who the close second is. Like you said, we know who's sick. The bottom is. I just don't know who the close second is that can catch them on any Saturday right now.
And there's some good points in the chat, man. Shout out to my guys over at Golden Boot, Pooh, and he said, which Howard do we see? They've looked great against their FBS games.
That's what I'm saying.
But terrible against some of their HBCU opponents. But then D-Lob brings up a point that me and you talked about 2 weeks ago. Furniture is moving in the locker room if it's in Morgan State.
Oh, come on.
As a defensive player, I'm over it. It was funny, about a few weeks ago, but that week they could be coach. They're what? They could be 5-1 right now
easily
if they just had a top 70 offense in the FCS.
Easily, if they could just find a way to get to 17 or 20, they would easily be that. Easily.
I just don't know, because someone asked me, and we were talking about it in a group chat, what do you do if you're the OC? Like, how desperate do you get in terms of developing a scheme, pushing the envelope? Like, at this point, man, I'm putting the fastest guy I got at quarterback, and we're just running the Wildcat, and we're going Army triple option if we have. We got to do something because we can't throw the football.
What are they going to say?
I don't know what else to. Yeah, I just feel like Damon Wilson has to be frustrated as a coach right now because he's a defensive guy. We know him and Sewell built that defense brick by brick, and it's elite. It's one of the best defenses in the entire country, but the offense is so far behind that it's just, I just feel like as a coaching staff, as a player, it's hard not to kind of get in your own head. It's like, what is our ceiling right now? Because the defense can go out there. They held Davius Richard in that Central offense to 17 points?
Yeah.
And lost that game. And it took a last minute touchdown to even get it within 7.
Yeah.
I just don't know what else to do with them. But coach, shifting over to the SWAC, similar chaos. Now, I think FAMU has to, someone tweeted about this. So the situation for FAMU to clinch the division, if they beat PV this weekend, and Alabama A&M loses to Alabama State in the Magic City Classic, FAMU clinches the division.
Yep.
That's how it goes. But if FAMU loses for some reason, listen, the only way that FAMU doesn't win is there's a 3-way tie, pretty much, between Jackson, Alabama A&M, and FAMU. So if FAMU wins 2 of the next 3 games, it's over regardless. But if Alabama A&M loses again, it's over.
Yeah. One game season for the Bulldogs. Yep. FAM just has to keep doing what they do, and they've got to get out of their own way with the slow starts, as they had this past week. But I think they will be.
My guy D-Law's a UAPB fan, coach, so I don't think he appreciated what y'all did this weekend. He roots for you every week, but this week.
Oh man, that's crazy. Oh man, but FAM had that slow start. On the way home, man, it's one of those things where the bus was buzzing like, oh my, and by halfway through the trip, it's like, okay, order's been restored. FAM's back in control. They've got it and we said this for the last couple of weeks that they've got to get out of the gates fast. They've got to understand that everybody's gunning. And A&M, man, shout out to them, man. They, I closed the door on them a while back, but they're still fighting.
I did too. This week is going to be huge. For both of those.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, for both of those teams, it's going to be. I look at that FAMU game, coach. I got to pull it up here. I just don't know where to put Musa. I don't. I don't know what to think of it. Now, he didn't play a bad game. 17 of 32, 182 tubs, an interception, and then a rushing touchdown. It's just, I think I don't know. I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong here. The expectation is that Willie Simmons is a quarterback guy. We've seen him do this with so many quarterbacks developing. We've seen what this offense could look like. We saw flashes, and we keep seeing flashes, but it's like we never can put together 4 quarters. So fans, analysts, everyone's disappointed overall. It's just, I know he can play better than this. And it's like against a Texas Southern team that was kind of reeling without their starting quarterback, you expect more, even though he didn't play a terrible game. Is that kind of how you feel?
I think the expectation since game one, first half, I think everybody is saying or said, however you want to put it, that's the guy. And then when he didn't kind of come back the second half the same way, and it's just been, those kind of weeks after that, the expectation was set the first half of that Orange Blossom Classic for this team. And is that fair? I don't know. But I don't think it really matters to those guys in that locker room down in Tallahassee as long as they win. But I think the expectations and what everybody expects to see or thinks they should see from JM outweigh what he's really doing or what he's been able to do. Now, he's been up and down, but he's kept it in the middle of the road, and I know they're saying, hey, man, you have the keys to this thing, just don't crash us. And that's what he's done. He's just kept it in the middle of the road. He hadn't crashed it. He's come close. He's kind of dented up the rim, kind of like my wife's done the car. You go out there and you look at the car and there's scrapes on the rim from where she's ran up on the curve. He's done that, but he hadn't wrecked the car. And that's all those guys in Tallahassee care about. But I think for, what you asked me, I think the expectation from everybody else is just really huge. And when he doesn't throw for 500 yards a game, I think that's when everybody's like, what's wrong with Musa? Well, dude, he threw for 300. What's wrong with Musa? He threw for 200. They won by 20. That kind of thing. So, the expectations, I think, were set that first half, and it's just out the roof right now. And that's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah, I will say this. Me and you were kind of critical in the preview show about them not committing to the run.
Yeah.
44 rushing attempts for 255. They finally committed to the run. And that Dean had 9 carries, Jennings had 9 carries, Yant had 12. You gave 5 to Shareed on different little trick plays. Will Hoyt had a few carries. Burt had a carry. They really spread the ball around running the football. I like that. I will say, in terms of Texas Southern, I thought their defense played really well early, played inspired, but they were on the field for over 35 minutes of the game, and they don't have that type of depth. And I think it really wore them down late. But, man, Ladarius Owens is a problem at running back. I hate that, it's almost for nothing. It's almost for nothing at this point, but man, he has consistently put up yards, averaging 6, 7, 8 yards per carry. Ladarius Owens is legit, and it's just disappointing that this kind of season is kind of a wash for them, especially with losing your starting quarterback midway through the season, even though I thought Jace played a really good first half. I'll say that. 3 tubs. He played really well against a good defense, but the second half, man, you got to kind of put it together. You put your team in position to win. Yep. You come out of halftime and you didn't replicate that. I think that was the most disappointing part of this game. FAMU's defense locked them up in the second half. But, Coach, looking across the SWAC, you guys get a big win, 31-7. We kind of talked about that earlier. Southern does what they should have done. I thought they were going to beat Bethune by a little bit more, but Bethune's kind of been that scrappy team this year. You look back to that Jackson game, the Southern game. Bethune might not be winning a lot getting but they're in a lot of games.
Yep, had a chance to win that Alabama State game a couple weeks back. They're getting better. I think they've had a bit of a situation at the quarterback position as far as injuries. So I think they've been playing with some different guys. But Coach Woody has them playing in every game. They're playing hard. And that's the thing that, makes them scary going down that road for FAM. And you're talking about a rivalry game at the end of the year where anything can happen. That's going to be one to watch as well. It's going to be one to watch as well.
There's going to be some people texting me and you after the game. That was like, don't even put that in the air. Don't even put that in the atmosphere. No, it was funny though, because I guess some people are watching the show. You got tagged. I don't know if you saw it. I want to say in one of the Montana State posts, one of the fans tagged you underneath him was like, it's time for Coach Fred to put some respect on Montana State because you picked that upset, so that they're already calling you out over in Bozeman, man. So you can't be on the hate list in Tallahassee too.
No. I'm a Florida boy. I'm just saying that classic, man. Anything can happen. And it's
Could you imagine? I know. I want to say I saw some family people in the chat. What would be the narrative? Like, I know they haven't won an outright championship since like 01 or something like that for that program. Even if they win the SWAC, I won't even go to the Celebration Bowl, win or loss. If your one conference loss, even if you get to the SWAC championship and win it, is to Bethune-Cookman, God, that's got to be a sour taste, even with a championship, right?
Because Cookman's never going to let you forget the fact that you went 12-1 and they're the one. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be more painful than anything.
Yeah, that would be a bad loss. And before we move on, I forgot to say General Hunt played like a man this weekend. 2 sacks.
Took over
from the D tackle spot. He was dominant. Shout out to him. But coach, the final game, obviously, Jackson escapes Valley with a win. It was a tight game for a little while, but I think Jackson, I mean, listen, when you force 3 interceptions and have 8 sacks, I don't know what you're going to, I mean, they absolutely ate that Valley offensive line, and there was just nothing they could do about it.
8 sacks. You're talking about going backwards at times in that game where Valley had a little momentum and it was just like a timely sack here, timely sack there. You've got to be able to pressure the quarterback, but at some point, 8 sacks, man, that's tough for any offense, man.
Yeah, and Jackson, because they forced 3 picks, they now lead the country in interceptions.
Yeah, man.
Montana had it last week. Montana didn't play this
we were all 3 tied.
And, it was Montana was 1. You guys, Jackson, and there was a third team tied, and I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was like UT Martin or someone like that. So they were all tied. So now Jackson's in the lead. Montana didn't play. I don't think. Did you guys have a pick this weekend?
We didn't have one. UT had one, but we didn't. Have
UT had one, but so it's all spread out now. We'll see. Montana's got some. They got Northern Colorado this week. There's a chance they could have like 5 interceptions this weekend. I'll be completely honest with you. That game's going to be ugly. I want to say it's in Missoula too. That could be a problem. But Jackson makes a quarterback change. Jacoby and Morgan. Coach, we talked before the game. I think the biggest takeaway was it kind of added a running element to that. Like Jason is a pure pocket passer. He has a little bit of wiggle, but not a lot. Jacoby is just a bigger guy who can get out of the pocket and move. Had 75, 1 touchdown on the ground. I wanted to see, I'll be honest, Coach, against this Valley team, I wanted to see him be a little bit more efficient. Now, I get that this was his first start. We'll kind of see what he evolves at, but I think this weekend, no offense to UAPB, is a good chance for him to kind of get his rhythm. But I'm going to hold out on how I feel about Jacobian's future until the Texas Southern Alcorn game. I think those will be 2 much stiffer tests than what he's going to get this week and last week.
Yeah, and again, like you said, no disrespect to them, but I think, for him being able to come into his first game and then still have a running attack to help him out, not his running, but a running attack behind him to help him out, kind of eased him in. Now, when someone takes that run game away, will he be able to do something else to keep his offense moving and keep him on the field? So it'll be interesting to see the next couple of weeks if they put a 8-man front up there and make him beat them with his arm.
Yeah, and shout out to D-Live. He said offense was taken on that UAPB comment. So, and shout out to Brother Bakari, man, for tuning in. I know he said he's rooting for chaos because, listen, there were still some Jackson fans that are asking me about potential playoff hopes. Listen, the bubble this year is going to be
full.
Listen, I'm gonna take a look. I want to do an article about this. Listen, Timothy's article on the playoff bubble will be posted tonight. I still got to go through and edit it, but
Timothy.
Coach, the bubble is so big. I really don't remember a bubble being this packed in the past 3, 4, maybe 5 years. I mean, there's so many. Like Holy Cross if Holy Cross wins out, they won't win the Patriot League if Lafayette wins out. So they're on the bubble. Then you got the CAA, which there's probably 7 teams that don't know where they're going to finish right now coming out of the CAA. And then look at the MVFC. North Dakota, South Dakota, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Northern Iowa jumped back in the top 25, Youngstown State, Southern Illinois. That's 8 teams from the MVFC that still have a shot.
And then you still have the Idaho schools,
Big Sky, yeah.
You still have, Western Carolina. What happens if NCCU loses?
Oh God, yeah, they're probably in if they lose a game, I would imagine. And then wait, let's not forget Tennessee State.
Yeah, Tennessee
in
State.
there. And what happens if UT Martin slips up? They're on there. Listen, SEMO's rolling. There's a chance Coach SEMO plays UT Martin, I want to say in 2 weeks. If they beat UT Martin, SEMO's going to get the auto bid. And then Tennessee State and UT Martin are going to be on the bubble as well.
And then, I mean, you can't say that UT Martin's, I think they are, I don't want to say a lock if they don't win it, but their body of work kind of makes them a lock. I would like to say the same thing about Western Carolina, but you voters,
they're a lock.
Feeling him.
If they win out, they're a lock. Now, I will say the cool part is, for the first time in a while, the committee's coming together, the FCS playoff committee, and they're dropping a top 10 Thursday. So we'll kind of see where they're.
You're not on that committee?
No, so it's made up of ADs from each conference. So one school in each conference has a representative every 3 years that rotates.
I remember you said that. I thought maybe they listened to the show and they called you as, hey, we're going to have you on speakerphone, help us out.
I think they should get I'm trying to think like national media. I think there's probably 5 to 6 national media guys that they could probably get that actually kind of pay attention. They can have their thumbs, have the thumb on the pulse of the FCS. Now, I'll say this, based on the reactions of the media poll, I don't know if people would love that, because there's just people who I don't know what it is, man. The toxicity about polls this year, who knows what would happen. But I don't know, because Timothy makes a good point, because there could be a 3-way tie. Well, Timothy, if I'm not mistaken, SEMO doesn't have a conference loss yet. So I'm saying if SEMO wins out, I think they win outright, because UT Martin beat Tennessee State. And if SEMO beats UT Martin, then they're going to have one loss. So SEMO's 3-0 in conference, Coach. I'm looking right here. They have an out-of-conference game against Nichols. They go to Nichols in October. That's a weird out-of-conference game. Then they got Robert Morris on the 4th. And then the 11th, they travel to UT Martin and end their season at Bryant. If
at least 3.
If they win out, I mean,
I see 3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah, I think the only one that really is a question mark. Listen, Nichols is not very good this year, I'll be honest. And plus that won't count against conference anyway. But I think if they get that UT Martin game, it's a wrap. So yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping Tennessee State squeaks in, man. I really am rooting for Eddie George. I want to see that defense kind of get tested. And I mean, you're looking I'm trying to think in terms of location, who they would probably go up against. I mean, they wouldn't go up against UT because they played. I mean, you're probably looking at a Chattanooga matchup potentially.
Yeah, just because of the distance and how they do the first round, I would think.
And then, because we didn't even mention the SoCon madness, because Western's probably in there. Furman will probably win the conference. What about Chattanooga is going to be right there. Listen, and let's not forget,
is full, man.
That Mercer team's kind of rolling, looking better and better right now.
If they throw the ball to Ty James every play, they would be in. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. And y'all go read Timothy's article tonight, man. I'm going to get it done after the show. And I agree, Brother Bakari. I think Jackson, I don't – the problem with that, with Jackson, like I said, I know people want to talk about it, but they just don't have a signature win, man. That's the problem. I mean, your one signature, the best case scenario for Jackson to make it, I mean, you would have to hope Alcorn comes into the Soul Bowl on a winning streak, because Coach, what would that put you guys coming in that game 7-3?
Yeah, 7-3.
So they could be getting top 25 votes at that point. So that would be the only chance. So I would say it's, like I said, I know we talked in the other chat, Brother Bakari. I say it's a very long shot, almost near 0. But listen, I'm never going to say never, because who knows with the way this season is gone. I mean, you could have some teams collapse, and we saw it last year. Chattanooga. Well, who did Chattanooga lose to last year? Coach, Western? I think it was Western that knocked them off last week, knocked them out of the playoffs. So listen, chaos could happen.
Chaos.
Yeah,
a lot of chaos.
You need what happened 2 years ago when FAMU was there, when just a bunch of teams just all went every weekend was an upset. But Coach, man, wrote our final 2 segments. One, wide receiver of the week, man. Listen, I kept some notes. There were some again, but Coach, I swear the wide receivers have taken note that you're giving this away, and they're just out there going insane, man. So who did you pick out of all the ones that went insane this weekend?
Man, I had several honorable mentions, man. You know, the kid at
Yes.
Penn, the kid at Wagner, Southeastern Louisiana, South Carolina State. Who was the other? Georgetown, he did work. The kid at Mammoth did work. Illinois State, that kid did work. But no one outworked my guy at SEMO there, man.
Oh, yes.
6 for 203, 1 touchdown, over 30 yards a catch. I mean, when you're talking about 6 catches, man, and you go for over 200, you know, the kid Ryan, man, it just did work. But there were several, man, that went and had big days. But to me, his 6 for 203, 30 yards a catch, that's eye-popping.
Shout out to my guy Ryan Flournoy, man. Hey, I had him on I want to say he was a first or second team All-American for us in the preseason. The kid is just a baller. And I think he kind of got overshadowed last year due to Geno Hess's. You know, we know what Geno is at running back. Yep. But man, this and the thing I like about Ryan too, Coach, being on the kind of a run first team, man, his blocking tape, there's gonna be someone taking notice, man, because that kid will go out there and
it's more than that. Yeah.
Woo. He's a problem. He's physical. But like, shout out to the guy at Penn too. What, he has 17 catches this week?
17, man. 191 and a touchdown. Yeah, 17, 191 and a touchdown.
That, man, wide receivers balling out, man. So we still got to. I got to get in touch. I'm waiting to hear back from Idaho State to get them gloves to last week's winner, Cheatham James. I know Ryan.
I got them to him. I sent them out.
Okay, perfect.
Let us know.
Yeah, yeah. So I got to go check out the Mercer film. I want to see if Ty rocked the gloves. Already or not. But yeah, we'll get in touch with Ryan, man. Get him his gloves as well. And hey, we'll see what happens next week, Coach. You're gonna have some tough decisions on your hand at the end of the year when we give the national award out, because there's some crazy stats right now.
Crazy numbers.
I mean, it's insane. But Coach, biggest winners and losers, man. Let's start with the biggest winners of week 8.
Man, biggest winner, man. Furman. You go on the road and you do it in rolling fashion. You know, I think that is one of those deals, you know, first place on the line. I think you definitely go in and make a statement, man. And I think for them, I think that's the biggest takeaway. That's a big winner right there for them.
Yeah, I think Furman's up there for me. I would say Montana State, man, because I know that they were favored coming in, but man, of any time, Coach, you know this, to win on the road in conference against a top 10 opponent is tough to do in any given week, man. And they went out there and they were dominant. I got to give them their props. And then of course Lafayette, man, they kind of were doubted and no one was paying attention to them, which I don't think they blame anyone for not paying attention to them, but listen, they came out here, they're firing, beat a really good Holy Cross team, and now they're in control of their own destiny. They can make the playoffs for the first time since 13, and they do it now with a winning record rather than just skating in there with a losing record. So I'm going to give it to those 3. Coach, your biggest losers for the week.
Biggest loser, man. I'm going to go back to the HBCU circuit, man. Morgan State's offense, man. Your defense is out here putting up statements, man, and I mean, you know, they are doing it week in, week out. Shout out to, you know, Coach Morgan, because he's keeping those guys playing. You know, that right there on primetime, national television, that defense put on a show and got, you know, little to no help. So, you know, to me, the biggest loser from this past week was the Morgan State O.
You know what? I'll give you the Morgan State O and raise you North Carolina A&T, who went 8 for 15 for 37 yards and 3 picks and 2 pick sixes. Coach,
again, man, I had to go back and look at that stat line to make sure it was real.
Coach, there's no way, right? Oh God, I don't want to spend any more time. Hang on, I gotta pull this up real quick just to make sure I'm 100% on this number. This year passing, Coach, 7 games. Coach, they are oh God, they are 48 for 108 attempts with 6 interceptions, 51 yards per game, 359 total passing yards, and 0 passing touchdowns.
50 yards a game, man. 50 yards a game. And
oh God,
you go back and you look at this past week stat line. It's not even like, there's a person that's being consistent. There's like 5 guys with 1 catch. I don't know, man. I don't know.
48 completions, coach. There's quarterbacks in the country that have completed 48 passes in a single game this year.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say I was going to say a game, man.
3.3 yards per attempt for the season.
We're talking about a passing attempt. We're not talking about a rushing attempt. We're talking about a pass attempt, man.
Oh God, it's just brutal. I do want to say another biggest loser, North Dakota. A week after getting that huge win, you're top 10 in the country, you're rolling. Everyone's saying you could compete with the best teams. 27-0 loss to Northern Iowa, where you struggled. I mean, Northern Iowa beat them in every aspect of the game, and it was not even close, man. So I got to give one of the biggest losers to North Dakota. And then let's just be honest, Holy Cross, William and Mary got to be big losers. I mean, you're looking now where both of those teams' playoff hopes are in jeopardy now if they don't turn it around. They were preseason top 10 teams based on what they were bringing back, just have not lived up to the hype. So I got to give both of those 2 of the biggest losers of week 8.
I'm with you on that. And Timothy, man, you got to ask my receivers, man, and drills. When I get it warmed up, man, I get the cooking. Ain't no doubt, baby. Ain't no doubt. But
I would listen. I've seen coach in warm-ups, Timothy. I think he's got what? I think he's got more than 3 yards per attempt in him right now.
Hey, and then my other biggest loser, man, honorable mention, man, had to be freaking Harvard. I was on that train, and I'm just I'm gonna slide off at the next stop, and then we'll pick it back up from there. But you were rolling, and But anyway, that's that.
To Princeton too, like that's a tough loss, especially because we talked about some of their offensive struggles. But coach,
right.
A big week this week. Number 1 South Dakota State going on the road to number 4 South Dakota. You have Montana State going over to the Kibbie Dome for Idaho, number 9 in the country. So some big ones. We got another big Thursday night MEAC matchup. South Carolina State traveling to North Carolina Central. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Trey Oliver has ever beaten South Carolina State as the head coach at North Carolina Central. It's going to be that. I can't wait for that game, even though I do give the advantage to Central. You never know, man. Coach Pugh, I feel like I know he's retiring. I think he's got one more big upset in him.
Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm putting the house on NCCU, man. I'm putting the house on them guys, man. This is even before we get to Thursday show. Write it down.
I like it. Hey, I will see what the spread is on that one. But guys, man, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. You can check out highlights from Furman, Western Carolina on the channel too. Of course, man, check out the website over on si.com, Fan Nation. A bunch of great content there. Timothy's going to have his playoff article out later tonight. And guys, man, make sure to tune in Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Central for the Week 9 preview. As coach is going to be getting ready for Valley coming into Lorman, man, as they look to make it 4 in a row and are on the march, man. Listen, we talked about SWAC East tiebreakers. Alcorn controls their own destiny, man. All you got to do is win.
And here we go, FAMU. Strike again, or whatever it is. Let's go this weekend, baby. It's homecoming.
Man, I love it, guys. But make sure to subscribe, hit the like button. But for Coach Fred, for myself, and for the Blue Bloods, man, we out for right now.